Hey guys, this is Eric here with Mallory and Josh. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty
Awesome.
good.
How are you, Eric?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Got our first snow of the year today. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little crazy. I know Mal's a
Winter.
huge fan of snow, but
I love snow. I think it's so pretty.
yeah, yeah. Um, so cool. So for those of you joining us that might have never been on one of these Hangouts before, we're the Live the Movie team, and this is our weekly Google Hangout team meeting. And basically, our group is all about helping each of us live the movie, like the saying. So basically, if you think of any really good story-based movie, you have a protagonist and they have a goal or something they're excited about that they go after, and they think if they achieve that goal that they'll be happy or fulfilled or they'll be significant or whatever, whether that's falling in love with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or winning the championship, or the villain beating the villain's not supposed to win, the hero beating the villain, or whatever the scenario is. But the interesting thing is, what really makes those type of movies great is the moment where the main character gets knocked down, they get off track, and they kind of throw their ego aside and actually decide to go after the goal again, but to do it not because of the recognition they'll get or how they'll feel of being worthy or whatever once they achieve the goal, because they become the person they need to be able to achieve the goal, and then the outcome is something that just kind of happens out of that. So what our group is really about is, how do you have a group of people to hold you accountable in the process of being the main character in your life, and we're kind of the role, like the secondary players in each other's movie or story, and being able to be there so that when someone gets knocked down and then they get back up, how do you do that? How do you have the mentality to make sure that you do that? And I think one of the things that happens is people watch movies and they don't get the lesson because they think it's just a movie, when in reality, if you really see what they did and you learned how to grab that mentality and hold on to it and actually take action from there, you can achieve some of those things. So there's a few things we do. We have our Hangouts each week. Right now we do them Monday at 6:30. Every 3 or 4 months we get together as a group and do what we call a mastermind, which is we take some of the stuff we've been learning and kind of dump it all on each other all at once for usually over 3 days, but it's basically like 2 days, like 48 hours of just learning. And then we also have some fun. And what that does is it really reinforces the things that we've been learning. And even as technology gets better and, people might start working from home, or people might start doing a lot of things virtually, nothing replaces human contact. So I don't think, conferences and events and meetings and all that stuff, the real important ones, will ever go away from being in person. And, that's what we try to do as well. And one of the things we do to hold each other accountable, because we each do have goals that are different areas of our lives, but the way we bring it all together is that we hold each other accountable. And one of the ways we do that is each month we read a book, and they're usually personal development based in some way, shape, or form. But each book we read is a little bit different, whether it's a different author, a different style, but the same principles and the same ideas are in there, but they're packaged in a little different way, so that, like many different people, but one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, says repetition is the mother of skill. But the problem with repetition is it gets boring after a while. So how do you create both the Tony teaches the 6 human needs, and 2 of them are certainty and variety. So how do you make something certain and make it, uncertain, or variety? So you got to bring the fun and bring things a little bit different to the things that you also know that work. And the way to do that is to constantly be learning personal development principles, but to do it in a little bit different way each day and each week and each month and each year. So the book that we're actually reading right now, and we just decided on it last call, and I know Josh and Mallory have told me that they're getting the book, but they're in the process of getting it, so they haven't got it yet. So a lot of times the first call each month, what we end up doing is kind of taking what the topic is of the next book we're going to read. And each of us has learned enough from our experience in, we each worked for the same sales company, Cutco and Vector Marketing. We've read a ton of personal development books, been to events and stuff. So whatever the topic is, we know enough about it that we can have somewhat of a discussion, even leading in to a book like this. But so one of the things I want to do is kind of go back to what we talked about at the end of last call when we picked this book. And I know Mallory said something that I thought was pretty important, which is I told each of them that my pick, if we were going to go for it, was the book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And the subtitle is A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment. And it's a book really about being present. And Mallory was talking about at the end of last call, I can let you share it, but basically, seems like a great time of year to be focused on being present. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of expand on that at all.
Yeah, I just think with the holidays coming up, I think it's so easy to get caught up in making plans for the future, like the near future with Christmas, or if you celebrate Hanukkah or any, whatever religion you celebrate, season. And I think it's so important just to really, really do your best to find peace in the moment and peace with yourself, and know that, this year's holidays are going to come and they're going to go. But I think it's so important just to stay in tune with who you are as a person on the inside, and just stay true to that throughout this season. Because a lot of times if we do get caught up in the season and, we try to buy gifts for everyone and, keep up with the Joneses in a way, I think it can get people stressed out and bogged down, and, thinking about oh my gosh, I have to go to all these parties, and even into January. I know that Ryan's, my husband's work, does their holiday party in January. So it's like, and after December 25th, or even after the new year. But I think this is definitely the busiest time of year for most people. And if we can take some time to stop, slow down, put our mind, into a focus of the present moment, it can really be beneficial for our overall health to get our energy right for every single day. And we can aim to any situation, and instead of thinking too much about the future, which is what sometimes we tend to do more this time of year, especially with like New Year's resolutions. It can just get really overwhelming if we let it. And this will help us as a team and individuals to really stay focused on what's important in life, which is just staying true to yourself so that you can give love to others. And this time of year is a lot about giving love to family and friends, and which, in my opinion, and it's kind of like during your son's dedication at church, how he said, Thanksgiving, we should have 364 days of Thanksgiving and have one day to complain. And I think this time of year reminds us how many people we have in our lives to be grateful for and to love, and who love us. But it's also good to think about that throughout the year and not just during the holiday season. So I think a book like this will be, and keeping our mind focused on the present moment.
Absolutely. And it's one of the interesting things, and this comes back to being present, is one of the things that we worry about sometimes is like what other people are going to think, or what's going to happen, or whatever. And one of the things, it wasn't necessarily that I was worried about, I guess it was like a worry of people understanding. So I was raised Catholic, and Meg was raised Protestant, and we ended up, the priest or minister that did our wedding, we ended up having Logan dedicated at that church. And they do things a little bit different than the Catholic Church, and I actually think the way they do it is pretty cool. But most of the people that were coming were from my family, so they're all used to the Catholic Church. So I was wondering what they would think about the whole thing. And the funny thing was, you start, thinking about that. What are they going to think? Whatever. And not only did they all have a great time, but people actually loved it. Like one of the things that they do there is they let people share anything that's great that's going on, or if they're going through a challenge, and then the people feel like they're actually participating in not only the mass, but that people care, and that vice versa. And then the minister actually repeats it and says, "Oh, I'd like to give a prayer for so-and-so who's going through this time, or knows somebody who's going through this time. And everyone just absolutely loved it, which is interesting because that comes back to like, you just, you schedule things and you enjoy them. And even if whatever you're worried about comes true, at least you're only worried about it in that moment when it's happening rather than all the way leading up to it. And then most of the time it doesn't even end up happening. So I just thought that was pretty interesting because everybody's still been talking about how much they enjoyed that. So Eckhart Tolle is actually considered the #1 spirituality teacher in the world. And Dr. Wayne Dyer, who actually passed away last year, he always jokes because both Eckhart Tolle and Dr. Dyer talk a lot about the ego, and they joke about how they how could there be a list of spirituality teachers, like ranking who's the top spirituality teacher, when in that the whole point is to not do that, because that's part of the ego. But it's kind of funny. But he's a very good teacher. He's got this book, The Power of Now. It's sold over 2 million copies worldwide, which is pretty cool. And one of the cool things about this book, and even though I'll teach a few things from it, you guys will still get a ton out of it, even if I end up saying some stuff that you're going to read, because one of the things that he does is sometimes when people teach spirituality, like you read something and you kind of understand the concept, but then you go back and live your day-to-day life and you're like, I don't get how this applies to like, traffic and, crazy people and all this stuff. But the way he wrote the book is he wrote it in a way that, there's an order to it, kind of like we have the 8 mandates of personal leadership, but there's an order to his book. But the way he wrote it was actually he got like fans or critics or whoever to write in questions, and the book is actually written in the format of answering questions. So some of the questions that someone might be thinking to question what a spirituality teacher actually is teaching or how it applies to real life, the entire book is just question and answer, which I thought is really cool, because some of the questions I would ask, I'd be like, well, yeah, I get how this applies if you're sitting in a, if you're a monk sitting in the middle of the mountains and there's no one yelling at you doing whatever, but how does this apply when you're, doing a sales job and you got family and all this stuff that's going on? And what he does is actually answer a lot of those questions. So I'll talk about a couple of things that he talks about. One of them is he talks about the ego a lot, but he also talks about what he calls the pain body. And basically the pain body, and we've kind of talked about this a little before, is kind of like how it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I talk about, you guys heard me talk about how I go to a chiropractor regularly, and it's not a traditional chiropractor. What they do is they help you become aligned, but they also help you shift some of the patterns that your body has created based on things that have happened. So, if you had some trauma from earlier in your life, the perfect example is if you're a baby and you're 1 year old and you walk off a counter, you hit your head and you look and you see something unique, then all of a sudden you're older and you don't like whatever that thing is that you saw, and you're like, what the hell is, what is this? Like, why don't I like the color green, or why don't I like this, or whatever? So even without identifying something, you can help lower the energy related to a negative pattern that you have. So, Tony does it in one way by helping people break their pattern and create a new pattern. My chiropractor does it in a different way by physically changing the way your body's aligned so that when you have a thought, it doesn't trigger as, much of a negative energy. And what he talks about with the pain body is he actually identifies when you go into like an egoic state, or you get in like a period of rage, or you have a moment where you're kind of like just not yourself, is he actually says you're actually not yourself. And the reason he says that is because our biggest problem is when we identify with the ego and we think that that's who we are. So let's say, I know all of us have had different challenges in our lives, and a lot of times, you go see a doctor and they tell you, oh, this is your condition. And on one side that's positive because they're identifying what it is that you need to work on. But if you take that on and say, I am, whatever, schizophrenic, bipolar, I'm cancer, I'm whatever, then you don't see how that's a pattern, or that's something that's happening right now, but that's not who you are. So he does it by identifying the pain body as this thing that happens when you become when you're in the egoic state, and you kind of focus on the wrong things, or you get in a fit of rage, or you have a moment where you're kind of not being yourself. And he says you're actually really not, you're not yourself when you do that. Like, because when you calm down, you say to yourself, wow, that wasn't me, I would never do something like that. And that's why he tries to do, is to have you disidentify with that, or see that that's something separate and that's not you. So he talks a lot about the pain body. So I wanted to mention that, because then if you read the book and you're like, what is he talking about? So that's what he kind of talks about a lot. One of the things that is that he talks about also is that, people think about the power of now and being present and totally in the moment and whatever. But one of the ways that you actually break down your ego is to stop and identify when you are going into one of those places or something. And I've been doing that a lot. Like, I think I even said this on the last call, like, maybe I'm tired, or Meg's tired, or whatever, or the baby's being tired or whatever. And I kind of like, a little, snappy, or she's snappy or whatever. And you pay attention to, oh, wow, like that wasn't a good response, or you feel like the negative energy that you're putting out there. And so basically, when you identify that whatever thought or action you took is one that was of the ego, you're actually reducing the ego. So, basically awareness, when you're aware that you're doing something basically to defend yourself, to make yourself look good, to make you feel important, but has no benefit to people around you or anything you're doing. If you stop and I take a step back and say, oh, there I go, going into my ego. A lot of times, if you're thinking, well, this book's all about just presence, you say, well, how? That's not present. I'm still thinking. It's like, yes, but at least you're disassociating from the fact and being aware of when you go into those places. So it's not like you read this book or another book and all of a sudden you're like totally present all times and whatever. But if you start to be aware of these things and can, pay attention to that, then it can make a real difference. So I think that's pretty cool. One exercise that someone can do to really make yourself super present, and I guess technically it's kind of a form of meditation, but it's not. It's really about quieting the mind, is an exercise. And my when I used to do the sales job that Josh still does and Mallory used to do, when I was running my office, there was times where I'd get so stressed out that I would actually call my chiropractor, and she'd be like, whoa, stop. What are you talking about? All these things you're saying are in the future. Like, what if this happens? What if this doesn't work out? What about this meeting tonight and tomorrow, whatever? So all she would do, instead of trying to tell me like what to do, because she wasn't like in my business, is she would actually have me go outside, sit on a bench or something, and she'd do an exercise where you basically, all you do is pay attention to your five senses. So you just sit there and you look around and so like right now I can hear the whatever it is, the hard drive of the computer. I can hear, I can feel my fingers. I can feel, my clothes on me. I can, smell some food that was just made in the kitchen. So when you pay attention to just your five senses and your only thoughts are just what's happening right now, that's a form of being present and getting yourself reset. So I've done that exercise many times before, and it's been extremely helpful, which is pretty cool. And even though this book it's a spirituality book and it's about presence, there's a lot of psychology to it and stuff. And one of the things, and you guys could probably speak to this too, is from your own experience when it comes to like scheduling, is one of the things, a lot of the questions in different forms are, so so Eckhart, you're telling me like, well, my life is awful right now because don't have any money and I'm divorced and, you know, all these things are going wrong. So you're telling me just to live in the present moment and just forget all that stuff? That doesn't make any sense. When I'm in the present moment, yeah, I'll feel fine because I'm not thinking about it. So I think I have no problems. But as soon as I think about those problems, I'm going to freak out. And that's not growing spiritually. And what his response, and there's different questions that are asked throughout the book, but basically what he says, and you guys already know this, because it's a basic scheduling. So it's, the moment is what it is, right? You're in the present moment. So the thing is, you have to be in a position where you're doing one of three things. You're doing something else, so you want to be present because you're not doing anything. You're either planning how you're going to overcome those challenges. So you're in the active brainstorming of how you're going to overcome those challenges, or you're actually going and doing the activities that are going to help you overcome the challenge. So I'll give you a perfect example. You guys all know this one. You know, we all were sales reps for Cutco. So let's say things aren't going the way you want, and a huge challenge is you have a big goal for the week and you're way behind and you're figuring out, how the heck am I going to hit my goal? So what are the three things you could be doing at the moment? You could either be present in whatever you're doing, something completely unrelated. You could be planning how you're going to be able to catch up and hit that goal. Or if you already did that, you could be doing whatever the action is to help you overcome the goal. So basically, again, you're either doing something else, you're planning, I could make more phone calls, I could go to the office and learn some new stuff. And then the third thing is you actually do those things. You make the phone calls, you go to the team meeting, you do those things. And all of those things come back to, no matter how big the challenge is, you're being present because you're just doing what it is that you've decided you're going to do in the moment. And the rest of it will take care of itself based on the action that you take. So, you know, I don't know if you guys want to chime in and kind of, you know, discuss that points or some of the points I've touched on so far.
I think what you were just talking about really speaks to, you know, the whole idea of the book being present in the moment, because you're right, there are literally only three things that we could be doing at any given time. We could be being present at the time, making a plan and what we're going to do in the future, or actually taking action with that plan to do whatever we want to accomplish. So, and I also wrote down what stood out to me when you were talking earlier about, you know, forcing yourself to really pay attention to thoughts so that you don't identify with your ego. And the question that you said just about awareness was, does this thought benefit those around me, or does what I'm doing benefit those around me? Because this is to, you know, what can we do to grow ourselves enough to be able to add value to other people's lives? I think that's the goal that a lot of people have in life and the purpose that they want to strive for. And those three things you just mentioned, you know, being present in what you're doing and thinking, how is what I'm doing benefiting somebody else? To do something that will benefit somebody else, or taking action, maybe what you're doing isn't benefiting somebody, so you decide to take action on something that will actually benefit someone else. I think it's really important to really stop and think about your thoughts sometimes. And that sounds counterproductive, but it actually is really beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's actually said in a lot of different personal development books. I think the first time I read it was in the Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I think it said that like 95% of your thoughts are the same as they were the day before. So if that's true, that means you're basically living on autopilot. So the only way you're going to change anything is if you stop and pay attention to the thoughts that you have and say, these don't really make sense to me, I'm going to make a change.
Somebody else posted on Facebook the other day that I saw that I really liked. I don't know if it was a quote by someone else, but they wrote something along the lines of, if you want to make a prediction of where you'll be in 5 years, listen to the things that you talk about today. And I thought that was interesting, and it kind of relates back to what we're talking about right now. It's like you just said, if your thoughts are today are the same as they are tomorrow, then you're going to get the same results. The definition of insanity is to think that you'll get a different result by doing the exact same thing. And it's so important that if you really do want to make a change and you have a goal, you know, it is time to stop thinking of all the excuses that you have of why you can't do something, and just get out there and do it. It really is as simple as that. And
Right.
some people are like, well, simple for some people, but that's just an excuse.
Right.
So you got to stop that that thought process, and like you said, make a shift in your own mind first, because that's where it all starts.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is, so I grew up with a family in the financial field, and I went to school for that, and now I'm back doing that stuff. One of the challenges with getting younger people, especially our age, to want to really invest in like retirement or saving for the future is one of the things that you think about is, and this comes back to lack of presence, is you say, well, that's great. If I follow this plan, I'll have millions of dollars when I'm like 70 or 80 years old, but I'm 70 or 80 years old, right? So that's lack of presence, which is you make the plan to do that, but it's not about waiting till you're that age to be like, oh, this is awesome. And it's, you make a plan so that you get to enjoy the latter half of your life, but then you live in the moment you are now. So I think that's one of the challenges with, like that planning for the long term, because people want instant gratification, and they also think of all the things that are going on once they get there and say, yeah, but I'm really old and I'm this and that and the other thing. It's like, yeah, but you're still going to come someday, so we still need to plan for that, so that takes a weight off our shoulders, knowing that we have a plan for the future. We're also going to live in the present moment. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, that some people don't do things because they identify with the future of like that. For example, I want to have $5 million when I retire, or I want to do this that's 10, 20, 30 years from now. But, well, even if I get it, am I going to be happy? Well, even when I get it, I'm going to be old, or I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be that. And it's like, well, you're going to get there one day, but make a plan, live in the moment, and do the little steps to do it. But then again, that comes back to the ego almost, is it's like, so I'm going to make this plan, and my ego says I need millions of dollars to be happy, but I won't get millions of dollars till I'm this age if I save. So I'm not going to be happy till I get there. And then, it all feeds on itself, versus making a plan and say, I'm going to enjoy my life now and enjoy my life later. So I think that's important. Josh, you jump back on. Did you have anything to share? Or not? I think he's gone. That's all right.
I think he's frozen.
Let's see. So here's another quick concept, is that, and you might have heard this in the past, because like Einstein talks about it and stuff, and people talk about how like time isn't real. And Eckhart doesn't say that time isn't real. What he says is that their clock time is very important, meaning like the clocks that we use around in the world, because you need to know when to be at your appointment, you need to know when you're giving the speech, you need to know when work ends. He says clock time is very important, but he says psychological time is not important, because you use clock time to plan out your day and your week and your month and where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to be. But psychological time is actually an illusion, because the only psychological time there is now. Because anytime you're talking about the future and past, the actual future or past never happens. There's always just the present moment. And if you're talking about, well, what about 2020? Well, that's clock time. That's just something that we've created here on Earth to identify that 2020 is 3 years from now or 4 years from now. But psychologically, if your head's out there, well, you can't go get 2020 and bring it back here. You can't do whatever you're going to do in 2020 right now. So that's what he
At least not yet.
At least not yet, right? Until it becomes the present moment. But then again, when 2020 is the present moment, that's clock time. And that's a tool that we use here to be able to be in the right place and stuff. So a lot of the questions that he answers are about time and all that stuff. So I thought that was interesting to add in. I know you jumped off a couple times, Josh. Are you back and have something to share? Going once, twice, solved. So, I think that there's some pretty cool concepts in that. So actually, this is one thing I could share. This is actually from the second book. I don't know that it's necessarily a sequel, but Eckhart has a second book called The New Earth, and I actually listened to it on the audio tape. He actually was the one who read it, and he said that he said there's three, not steps, but there's three criteria of conscious action, or conscious action. Conscious action. So, and this is very interesting to think about for a second. So, he basically says that anything that you can accept that you need to do, have to do, should do, whatever. So the first one is acceptance. The second one is enjoyment. So is whatever you're doing something you enjoy. And the third one is enthusiasm. The third one is, can you bring enthusiasm to whatever it is you're doing? And basically what he says is, if there's something you're doing that you cannot accept that you have to do it, you don't enjoy it, or you can't get enthusiastic about it. It doesn't have to be all three, but if whatever you're doing isn't one of those three, you actually should not do it. You should not do it. And you say, well, wait a second, what are you talking about? Like, I don't want to, go to class, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. But remember, one of them is acceptance. So if you could accept that this is the challenge that you need to do. So for example, if you're doing a job and you don't enjoy it, you can't get enthusiastic about it, and you can't accept that that's what you have to do, you just can't accept it anymore, then you need to stop. That's the point. You need to do it. And he says that's a way you can use a benchmark to see, maybe not day to day, maybe like, you have a tough day and you have a tough time accepting well, what would you have to do that day, but something that you do on a regular basis. If you can't get yourself to fit into one of those three categories, and hopefully all three, but at least one of those, he says that you should stop doing that as soon as possible.
I have a small example from this weekend. My husband and I went down to visit a couple friends in Pennsylvania, and my husband's a Celtics fan and I'm a Celtics fan, and so the Celtics were playing in Philly, so we were like, oh, let's see if we can get tickets for the game. And at first, add to this story, this is kind of big news, but we're actually expecting our first baby. So I've been super tired. Like after 2:00 in the afternoon, I just am exhausted. And if you're a female and you've ever been pregnant, you understand what I'm saying. Or if you're a husband of somebody who's ever been pregnant, I'm sure that you can relate too. But I was just so tired in the afternoon when we were talking about these plans. And as you're saying this, I'm like, I accepted the fact that we're going to be out late. I went and took a nap because I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be 100% tonight, or at least like 80%, I'm going to have to get some rest now. So I went and took a nap. And then I'm going to enjoy myself because I'm spending time with amazing people. And then enthusiasm. I mean, I still, had fun, and what's the point of complaining when I was at this really cool stadium, and it's like, I don't know if anyone's ever been to like all three sporting, I don't know what you call them, arenas, whatever, are in one place, and it's like, it's insane. It's intense. It's really fun. So to be able to accept the fact that I was going was pretty easy because of the people I was with. Enjoyment was pretty easy because of the people I was with. And then for me to bring enthusiasm to that event was still doable just because I had taken the nap earlier. So I just thought of that as you were going through that, it's so important to think about all those three things, to take conscious action to do something. And like you said, if you're not going to be able to bring at least two out of those three things to something, don't do it because it's not beneficial for you. It's not beneficial for the people that you're with doing it. So I think that's kind of a cool concept. I'm excited to read this book. Not that I wasn't before, but I'm even more excited now.
Cool. Josh, are you there? Did you have something or?
Yeah. So now you know my schedule now, apparently. For, working on Wednesday nights, having to take a nap in the afternoon. It's kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
And it's funny because what was I gonna say? It's the same sort of thing with my work schedule. It's obviously not easy to work nights for 4 nights in a row, and then do Cutco appointments in the daytime. But you just kind of if there's daily work, then I move it around and don't have to worry about it. So
Yeah, you still there? So I think what Josh is getting at, he might jump in and talk again, but one of the things he was talking about is he has kind of an unorthodox schedule. And one of the things is if you can't accept that that's how it is, then you already get the upside down sleeping schedule and all that stuff. And if you can't accept what's going on, then it's going to be really hard to have any enjoyment or excitement out of it. And then, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I like working with the people. I like the hotel. I like this stuff. But if you want to give a benchmark of, should I keep doing this? If you can't accept what you have to do and bring some level of excitement or enthusiasm to it, then that's the benchmark. It's like, well, then even though it has some benefits to me, the negatives kind of outweigh it. But if you can do those things, then it can have a benefit. I've thought of one more example, and then if you guys have any other examples or anything else to share, you definitely can. But one of the things that I've done, and I know my dad's done this too, is, and we talk about this a lot, is the one place that on the surface it makes sense that people get frustrated, but in deeper thought it makes completely no sense, is how crazy people get when they go to the airport. Like when you talk about lack of presence, people are like out of control when they go to the airport. And yeah, maybe if you're coming home from your trip, you're not as excited because there's somewhere fun you wanted to go. But think about this, right? You're literally going to a place where you can end up somewhere around the world. Like you could literally end up anywhere in the entire world within a day. You know what I mean? It's like crazy. But the other thing is, if you can't accept some of the things exactly the way they are, then you got to change it up. So like, for example, if I go to the airport, I dress in a certain way, so it's really easy to go through security. We make sure to get there early so that you're not in that situation where you're saying, are we going to make our flight? Or is this going to work? Is that going to work? And most people think that their vacation begins when they get to wherever it is they're going and they get the rent-a-car. Thank God we made it, or whatever. And I think about it, the second I'm done working, I'm on vacation, so that you get more enjoyment out of it, even if you're not going till later the day or the next day or whatever. And I enjoy sitting in the airport. I enjoy being in line. I enjoy getting there. And then people also hate flying. And I'm not the biggest fan of flying either, from the standpoint of just, I still think it's crazy that you're in a tin can in the sky. It's a little crazy, even though I've been on hundreds and hundreds of flights. But people don't like flying from the sense that you're in this crammed spot and there's all these people around, all this stuff. But the flip side of it is, think about this, right? We're all so busy. When are you ever in a situation where you can sit there, where you're actually in a chair and no one's telling you to stand up and go run and go walk and go do whatever? If you're on like JetBlue or maybe some of the airlines that have TVs now, you're literally allowed to watch TV and have no guilt about it because there's literally nothing else you could do. Or you could read a book, or you could think, or you could do whatever. And unless most of the airlines don't have free Wi-Fi yet, they have like paid Wi-Fi. So unless you're willing to spend money, no one's emailing you, or at least you can't get to any emails. You can't do any of this stuff. So I actually enjoy it from that. Or you could take a nap. Like, when can you take a nap and just be like, oh, there's literally nothing else I can be doing right now. Let me take a nap. So my point is, one of the things that, you're going on a trip, and before someone even gets to their trip, it's become work, and they're like completely exhausted before they even show up on their vacation. But if you take that kind of different approach and you say, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to plan to make this work, like the stuff that I talked about, dressing in a certain way so it's easy to take your shoes off, and if you have a computer, get it out of your bag, and not have to have a belt and do all this different stuff to get through security. And then when you're on the plane, it's like, this is great. I have time to plan. I have time to read. I have time to nap. I have time to watch TV. Like, what could be better? And it's again creating a pattern of presence. And I'm still excited, and I still have thoughts about getting where I want to go. But if you're constantly waiting, like, everything sucks until I get where I am, well, when you get there, you're going to say the same thing. Well, I can't wait to go to the park tomorrow. Can't wait to go to Disney tomorrow. I can't wait to go to the baseball game the third day. Oh my God, the last day of the trip's the best one because we're doing this. And then again, you're not present, and all of a sudden your trip's over, and you're like, wow, I had a lot of fun, but I'm really sad because I wasn't paying attention the whole time. You know what I mean? So it all comes back to the same concept of being present and all that stuff. So I don't know if you guys had any other quick examples or comments or anything like that.
Well, I think when you say, I can't wait for this day or this day or this day, if you're constantly focusing on and being excited about something that you're going to do in the future, it is really hard to be excited about what you're doing at this very moment. So it's so important just to, let those days come and know that they're going to be amazing, but then also just to bring yourself back on purpose and create that new pattern. And I wrote down, we're always creating a pattern for ourselves. So in order to make a change, one of the easiest ways is just to break the pattern of thinking or break the pattern of what you're doing as far as, taking action with something. And like I said, it starts with thought first and then action, and create a pattern that you really look forward to and that you're fired up about every day. It's if you simplify it that way, it just gets easier to accomplish something that you really desire, instead of thinking, oh, if only someday I could do this. Like, okay, well, future, because you can't control that, what can you do today to get yourself closer to that? Like, what would somebody who had that be doing on a day-to-day basis? And think about it that way, that kind of gets your pump in, and maybe reach out to somebody who's already accomplished what you want to accomplish, and you say, hey, where'd you start? And that
Right.
can get the ball rolling and give you ideas, and you can start to brainstorm. So
Cool.
That's what's cool about this kind of group, is that we do all have different goals, but it's the same concept of, the personal development side of it's key, but because we all want to start with the right mindset for what we're going to accomplish, and then brainstorming different ways to accomplish our individual goals, it's all very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, again, it's not that you don't have things you're looking forward to in the future. It's that you just gotta enjoy each day. Like, for example, we have trips and stuff planned for next year. So when I go to my calendar to look at it, I see it and I'm like, oh, that's exciting. But then if I'm not looking at my calendar, or we're not in the process of planning, I kind of forget about it, The perfect example is what Mallory and Ryan are going through right now, and also me and Meg. Think about the lack of presence that can come from thinking negatively about the experience of having kids. Oh my God, this pregnancy is tough. I'm so tired. I just want the baby to come out. Oh my God, we're not sleeping because, oh my God, the baby's I can't wait until the baby can at least sleep through the night. Oh my God, the baby now they can crawl, so I can't wait till they can walk. Oh my God, they're walking, so I have to chase them all over the place. I don't have any time for it. Oh, can't wait till they can talk, so at least I can communicate with them. Oh my God, they don't stop talking. Can't wait till they go to school, so I don't have to deal with them all day long. Oh my God, I can't wait till they're done. I can't wait till they're a little bit older. Oh my God, they're teenagers. Oh my God, they're driving me crazy. I can't wait till they're done with school. So then whatever. And then I can't wait till they're out of the house because they're driving me crazy. And then all of a sudden, you can go all the way to the end. You know what I mean? So it's one of the things where there's challenges in every stage. There's also a lot of enjoyment in every stage. And the baby's probably like the biggest example of that. So being present, I'm sure, you guys are super excited about when the baby's going to come. You also enjoy every step of the process, learning, things, every part of it's different, and it's all a new experience. So that's what you got to do. Be excited about that stuff in the future, but also bring it back to, really experiencing what's going on now. And I think when you use that example, like I just did, like going through your child's entire life, it sounds kind of stupid, but we do that with things sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I can't wait until I graduate college or high school. It's like, yeah, but then, but that's in the future, and then you're done, and I can't do and there's even movies or different shows that exaggerate this. Oh yeah, you just gotta grind it out for 40 years and then you'll be good. It's like, what? It's like you can work somewhere for 40 years, but if that's your focus, you're in big trouble.
There's a country song, I think it's by Trey Seconds, that's "You're Gonna Miss This," and it goes through like, somebody, I don't remember where it starts, but I think it's a girl who's in college and her dad keeps telling her, "You're gonna miss this, appreciate this time now." And then she graduates and she gets a job and then she meets someone and they live in like a crappy apartment, or in her mind a crappy apartment, and they get married and they have kids, and he's like, "You're gonna miss this when when the next phase of your life comes. So do your best to appreciate the time you have now." Because, and I do this, look at pictures and like, gosh, I wish I'd known then what I know now. And when I say that to myself, a lot of times I'll be like, okay, so if that's how I feel now, what am I gonna want to know about myself now that will help me to appreciate my life now, so that when I do look back to 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, I can say, those are some great times. I learned so much. I'm so happy to where I've gotten. And, instead of thinking, gosh, I wish I only knew the things that we're going to learn in the course of 5, 10, 15, 20 years that we don't potentially know now, but learn those things, gain the wisdom, because you always want to be searching for some sort of wisdom in the present moment, which is why I think these books are so helpful.
Absolutely. Do you have some, Josh? You still there?
For me, like, dang it. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So just going back to your whole point about like traveling and all that sort of stuff. It's just so funny to see people. It's so funny to see people caught up in all that sort of stuff, and it is easy just to think, oh my gosh, I have to, get the kids on the plane. I have to take their shoes off when they go through the security and all that sort of stuff, or whatever the case. But you can all the time just kind of say, hey, here. So I think some of that might, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it comes back to the greater, thing about what we're talking about. Oh, I can't wait to travel when my kids are a little bit older, and a little bit, it's the same thing with just having the baby in general. It's like, well, the kids are too young to travel. I'll wait till they're 4. Oh, I'll wait till they're 6. They're teenagers. They don't even want to come, and now we're dragging them, and they don't even appreciate this, and so on and so forth. But I'll kind of tie in what Mallory said to what a group like this can do for you is that, if you want to succeed at something, then you should study it. Tony Robbins says that all the time. He got that from Jim Rohn, who got that from his mentor, who we learned from a couple masterminds ago. And so if you want to study, if you want to be happy, study happiness. If you want to retire with millions of dollars, study how to invest, or, learn different things like that. If you want to grow spiritually, study spirituality. And my point is that Mallory talked about how we can always look back and say, those challenges weren't as big as we thought they were. Or I wish I wish that I thought this way, or I did this, or I did whatever, when I in the past. And so, one of the interesting things is that you can learn from people who are older or have more experience in something specific. A lot of times, whether it's, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, maybe they don't study personal development the same way that we do, but I still try to listen to what elders say, because they have life experience and they've been through things, and they, you always hear little bits and pieces of what's important and stuff. But to tie it back to the book, and then lastly back to being a part of our group, if you really come down to it, it's still based on what the book teaches. You know, I don't share this a lot, but I have a very I've been back to the place where I went to college, not a lot, but a bunch of times since I graduated. And when I'm there, I have a really uncomfortable feeling, like I don't know, like I don't know, like my chiropractor Eckhart would say, you just got some energy to work through or something. And the reason I do is because I just have this feeling of well, a couple of things. My parents spent tons of money for me to go, and I don't know that from the school going to class standpoint, in my mind, it was worth the money that it costs. On the flip side, I met some amazing people. I actually found the opportunity with Cutco and Vector on a chalkboard at school, and I had a ton of fun with my friends. So that was the flip side. And then the other part of it is I was so not present when I was there that I didn't step back for a second and say, like, this is amazing. This is probably the time I'll have the least amount of responsibility for the rest of my life. Let me just have fun. Let me work hard, but let me have fun. Let me enjoy the moment. I didn't really do that. I mean, I had tons of fun. I got good grades. I did all those things. So I just, there's just that whole thing. And if you think about it, what is the answer to that is to have been present, right? Have been present. The school is what it is. You paid what it costs, right? And you're there with your friends and you're enjoying the moment, and there's no tomorrow. There's just what do you have to do today and moving forward. And unfortunately, when we're on the younger side, we don't necessarily learn this stuff to be able to implement that in our lives. So, I'm the type of person that I don't have regrets, because I believe everything happens for a reason that gets you where you needed to be. But if you could somehow change your past but still get to the same spot, which actually doesn't make any sense. One of the things that I would do is, when I was in college, I would be a lot more present, have a lot more fun, probably participate in a few more things. And I would have studied abroad. I didn't study abroad, but I would have studied abroad. That's one thing I would have done. But related back to what our group's all about is that, sometimes the things that really make a difference are simple to do, so they're also simple not to do. And because of that, we've created a group. It's, you pick a goal and we help hold you accountable. We have these calls once a week. We read a book once a month, and we get together every 3 or 4 months. And that's the gist of it. And it seems very simple, in which it is, but it's not easy. It takes commitment. It's something you got to do. But when you're around these people and you start to make improvements, you can make a big shift in your life in the direction you want to go. I use this example a lot, and I know Josh and Mallory do too. It's the golf example. When you hit a golf ball and the head of the club is only like this wide, if you hit the ball a millimeter to the left of center, if you go out 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, you hit it 300 yards, if you're a good golfer, you're in the woods to the left. If you go 2 millimeters in the other direction, so you go 1 millimeter back to center and 1 millimeter to the right, and you go out 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, you're in the woods to the right. If you hit it in the center, you're down the fairway. And what is the point of that? The point of that is that it's little actions over a long period of time, or in that example, length, that seems like they're not really going anywhere. But then you look back on all that you've done and you say, wow, look how far I've come. And that's why many people neglect things, is because sometimes people hear about personal development. They say, oh, that sounds all good in theory, but I'm doing fine, right? I'm doing fine. And maybe they are doing fine, but then you hear 10, 20, 30 years down the line, they do something totally crazy, like totally crazy. And you're like, that guy was so normal. Why did he go off the deep end? And what it is that someone just neglects the things that they actually either want to do or need to develop themselves for such a long period of time, that they hit a threshold point and take some drastic action to change what's going on in their life. And rather than doing that, why not take conscious action, be present, focus on the goals you want. When you go through challenges, we'll be here to support you and help you get to where you want to go. So any last thoughts, either about some of the stuff I just shared or on the group in general?
I think some of us sometimes think, oh, I still have time. I still have in my life left to accomplish what I want to accomplish. But what we were talking about at the beginning of the call is psychological time is not, it doesn't really exist. Like today is and now is the only moment we really have. You know, God willing, we wake up tomorrow. You just never know. So if you really focus on today, full 12 hours that you're going to be awake for today or whatever, however long you stay awake, but just like the next 5 minutes, like for the next moment, it's so important just to present in your own mind and your own body and think, how do I feel right now? Like, do I feel good? And if I don't feel good, why? Like, what am I doing that I could better? Like, when do I feel like I'm on my game? When I think back to the past, like what was I doing at one moment in my life where I was like on point and on fire and like excited and passionate, and how can I get back to that? What was I doing then that I can do right now to get myself closer to where I want to be? So I think this really helps us stay focused on that. Like with the golf example is perfect because different directions in their lives don't really realize it because it's only small differences in the beginning. But then when you go out 10, 20, 30 years, it's like, wow, I really did do this with my life. They did this with their life. And you might be in totally different places, but you started in the same. Join.
Absolutely. Yes. Join. Reach out to the person who sent you here. Josh, do you have something real quick?
Not really, other than to say that I don't really have anything to say.
That's good.
Sorry for the little miscue around my charger. So.
No problem. No problem. So, yeah, so we're the Live the Movie team. So go out there, live the movie. Have a great day, guys. And we'll see you on our call next week. And if you enjoyed this, definitely reach out to whoever sent you here. And we'd love to have you be a part of the group and read the book, set the goal, come join us at Masterminds and stuff. And one last quick thing, because Mallory just said this, and this is the point to actually think of. With the golf example, the thing that makes the biggest difference is that if you're going out 300 yards, then when you're 50 yards out, the two balls are still right next to each other, even though people are taking completely different action. So that's the part, is you need to be surrounding yourself with people that know that taking the right action consistently over a period of time is going to get you in a different place than if you didn't take action, because for a period of time, it's going to look like nothing's happening when it really is until you get farther out. So that's what a group like this can really do to benefit you. So again, have a great day, guys. Live the movie. See you guys next time. Hopefully there's not too much snow, unless you guys love snow, but too much snow between now and then. Tomorrow's my birthday, and I'm start my 30th year. I'm 29. I'm going to be 29 tomorrow, but I start my 30th year of life tomorrow.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. So, all right. See you guys later.
Have a good night.
See
Bye.
ya.